When my dad first gave me my copy of Project Hail Mary a year and a half ago, he sang its praises, telling me that it would change my life, and it did. I stayed up till 7 a.m. the following morning just to finish it. I was familiar with Andy Weir. I'd seen The Martian when I was 12. I heard about Artemis from a star map app I'd gotten and unfortunately still haven't read. I read his short story The Egg when I was 15. I watched an animated adaptation of it by Kurz Gazette the following year. You should definitely check it out, by the way, and almost wholly incorporated it into my own personal philosophy because it resonated with me so much. It still does. It's real on you. People's jump scare. Expect the unexpected. This is a little Rocky I made, Alan. I want you to have it. It's the first thing I made with a 3D pen, and it's the first thing I made after seeing the movie, like maybe 2 weeks after seeing it with a friend. Um, can you tell it's the first thing I made? So now he's gonna watch you the entirety of the video through every single live action segment. We also have another special guest with us here today. I don't think he wants to get up. Here, I'll show you. Be very quiet.
Boom boom! Yay! Dude, I love that
Just
guy.
like Rocky's watching you, he's always watching me. So, can you tell this part isn't scripted? Currently, Weir's biggest work is Project Hail Mary, and that's because of the recent movie adaptation that was released in March, which is now streaming. Yay! Amaze! It's more easily accessible to people. Not Amaze. It's produced by Amazon. It's produced and streaming on Amazon. When will we finally be free? It's also one of the biggest things on social media right now. Shout out to Tumblr, especially if you're a big fan of Markiplier. I'm looking at you. And when my dad first gave me my copy, he also told me that I reminded him of our protagonist, Dr. Captain Ryland Grace, because he's a hopeful, optimistic, smart, funny biologist, just like you, referring to me, not you. And I went, "Aw, thanks, Dad, for singing my praises." All that to say is that I hold the most validity to the argument that I am Ryan Gosling. I've fallen for the, here, you didn't see my fist on the desk. You know, you gotta know how serious this is. Fallen for the Ryan Gosling propaganda. But do you see where I was initially getting at with this? Everyone relates to Dr. Captain Ryland Grace because they've been the coward before, they've been a reluctant hero, they've been out of their depth, and they've been rejected and found comfort in the safety of routine. Ryan Gosling plays an everyman, and Andy Weir's pretty good at writing those. There's a relatability to the simplicity of the character. He's incredibly flawed, and he wants and needs very human things. This book isn't only about sacrifice and saving the universe, but there's a very clear message here about empathy and, of course, autonomy that is a running theme throughout the book. So, Grace imagines himself dying in space and ultimately decides to forego the mission for it without ever really having a choice. Grace imagines himself dying on Earth, empathizing with his students, and remembers them on his mission in space post-amnesia clarity, and though I wish the book and movie would have dove a little more into that, he wants to stay on Earth for his kids, sure. He's scared, right. But he wants to grow old and die in the comfort of home. We're meant to root for certain characters and view others through their morally gray lenses. All of this is something we're supposed to grasp from the writing, both implicitly and explicitly. Rocky and Grace are in each other's shoes, if only different from each other in terms of species, home, and language. They lose something, they grieve together, they relate to the other's genius, their experiences, they're best friends for it, and they love each other. This book is an untraditional love story. Everything about this book is unconventional for the space it inhabits in writing. So why then did Mr. Weir say that thing he did on the Critical Drinkers podcast of all places? You don't know me. I'm Peablez, and if you do know me, you know I hate an apolitical ass bitch. Of all places to sit, you sit on the fence. That's gotta hurt. That's youch. You've heard it before. Art is inherently political. You can't divorce your politics from art. We're living through precedent after precedent, after all. You know? Project Hail Mary, both book and movie, is a story encompassed by global collaboration. A diverse array of scientists meet from across the world, no other much like it really, to save the world. And the great sci-fi threat of this venture is climate change, caused by an existential force. In order to conquer this, the mission requires extreme optimism, luck, sacrifice, and faith. Faith in the indomitable human spirit, faith in the mission, faith in the Hail Mary. And on that note, it does have an underlying tone that feels vaguely Western and Christian, despite our main character not being a believer in any faith, really, but needing a saving grace, and a Hail Mary, our American figures of speech. He's literally called Grace. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. That's the author's voice, an influence from our surrounding culture, the many Christian denominations that comprise the US as much as other demographics do in this giant melting pot. I just displayed how Catholic I was raised. Fireball, the story is told from a widely American lens that's political in itself, but Grace subverts a lot of our expectations for his expected archetype as well. Despite being American, who wakes up inexplicably muscular. He's a genius, he's a coward, he's emotional, and he cries a lot, which, for a protagonist of a great sci-fi blockbuster and novel, an American man with a mission to save the stars, it's unexpected. Like I said, he's not some rough space pilot, he's not a former military officer type, he's just a gentle yet brash schoolteacher with a doctorate. But none of those things are any form of social commentary. You're reading too much into it, which isn't a bad thing, but unintentional, according to Weir. And in defense of Weir, he's always felt this way about his stories. From a 2018 interview with Futurism to the recent comment in April, he doesn't like a hand-fisted story, and frankly, I get it to an extent. I understand that as a proclaimed apolitical person whose base-level politics seem to generally lean socially liberal, politics can strike you as something uncomfortable. Sure, whatever. I'm not trying to prove him wrong as much as he isn't trying to call anyone else wrong, but there's wrong in that assigning the reader a job that isn't entirely theirs. You have opinions, you have a theme, they're going to tie into the contemporary somehow, they're going to find its way into your story. It's you. That's why the act of separating the art from the artist is a difficult thing to do, and maybe that's in essence what this discussion is trying to get at, it's trying to attempt to do. So really, thank you, Andy Weir, for telling us that it's not wrong to seek a political reading out of your clearly political story. But the thing is, he's trying to divorce politics as the subject from politics the experience. Mirroring Weir's opinion, though hopefully in a layered fashion, I don't like when a story tries to pander to me, but I do love a relatable story. I love watching the experience of someone on screen and going, I have done that or I've felt that before. It's human, and it's human to want to observe others and their experiences too. I want to hear more queer stories. I want to hear queer black and brown stories. I want to hear stories about people who don't look like me and people who do look like me. And it's human to want to observe others and experiences too. And on that same train of thought, I get in the proverbial cuck chair for my favorite ships. What delineates pandering from relatability? I've had to grapple with that too as a writer. It's commitment from the author. For example, queer people can be flawed and have stories that incorporate their experiences and attempt to tell a wider narrative. They are allowed to exist with their identity because identity plays a role in a person's lived experience. Briefly chastising the root of all evil, so I'm covering all my bases. A company, though different from authorship, as widespread producers of art, can pretend to support gay rights and market to gay people, having gay pride parades at their billion-dollar infinite money glitch-making machine amusement parks, while also trying to stand middle of the road with their ventures and their values, censoring queer stories, and trying to meet the politics of the moment with the backlash of their fans. That's pandering. The mouse has his claws on everything. And all of that is to say, this isn't wholly to pin the blame on Weir, but to criticize people with this mindset in general, really. People don't just happen to spawn somewhere one day with no definitive background, like you're from Minecraft. That is political intrinsically. The same way an American man writing for an American audience with an American protagonist is. Politics is history. Politics are an array of demographics. It's social, it's commentary, it's people. In a very coconutry kind of way, we do live in the context of all that has come before us, except I'm not a cop or a war criminal. I'm a science major, so there's no strange irony behind me saying this. So of course I understand what Andy Weir's comment means. He prefers a story that is written in spite of politics, which I'm sure is easy to do as someone who isn't innately affected by the political state of the world. He's white, he's an older man, he's married to a woman, he's had to navigate life not at all through the lens of a queer identity or through black or brown skin. People are people, and people happen to be queer or black or brown or a combination of, and we live in a moment where that's hard. Sure, it may not be as hard as it was in the past, but we only live to fight because of that established past. One of the most powerful scenes in the book version of Project Hail Mary that I was waiting to see adapted into the screenplay was the scene where Antarctica is blown up. Now, if you haven't seen the book and you've gotten this far, I'm sure you've at least heard of the story being tossed around before, but it's harrowing. Eva Strat's science team, which we know includes Grace, concludes that in order to buy them more time, they need to create a far more substantial amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere so that the Earth doesn't face an ice age while the Hail Mary is en route to Tau Ceti, so that everything and everyone doesn't die. They detonate nukes in Antarctica. The environmental scientist leading this effort is devastated. They don't feel the physical aftermath or shockwave, but we can tell he does. It reads so simply in the book, but it's so heartbreaking. He fought so hard for our planet. He's doing to Earth what he sought to prevent his entire life. I'm studying ecology and evolutionary biology right now. I'm a year out from graduation, and I work in a museum. To hear that as an ecologist, it really resonated with me greatly, and the fact that our current administration is terminating IMLS grants, it genuinely feels like an end of the world moment. Like, I felt like that character really reflected me and experiences that my colleagues have had editing Peablez here. So as a slight aside, though not too unrelated, this is related to the IMLS grants and their cancellation. I need you to check out Alexandra Avila's video on the Freedom 250 campaign, which is separate from the America 250 campaign, which is a bipartisan sort of effort, which is kind of stupid and discussed in the video as well. But the Freedom 250 trucks is where they is a part of the effort to funnel IMLS funding into propaganda. This is literally just propaganda on wheels, and it's full of AI slop. And I need you to check out that video, even though he doesn't need my help. But this is a nothing burger. This is like the people's number one. This is the number one. But yeah, check that out. I will link it in the description. I think it was very insightful. So in a way, Andy Weir was right in that I gleaned something from the politics of the book that doesn't really relate to his own personal politics, and I related it to something external. But what is still written is a major form of social commentary on its face, explicitly. Andy Weir talks about climate change denial within the book, and he calls it stupid to deny anthropogenic climate change. He shares this opinion in reality. His parents are a scientist and an engineer. He was a software engineer before he was a writer. He's an advocate for science education. Education is political, and that's not exactly something that needs reading into. I don't have a platform, obviously, but he doesn't want to represent wider opinions. He just wants to create art for the sake of it. And despite achieving influence, it's not like he really asked for it. I'm not expecting him to be right on every issue. I'm certainly not. There are points in the book where I pick up on machismo vibes, and I attribute that to writing style and Weir's life experience culminating in his voice. There are as well points in the book that could be leveraged against Weir in terms of antagonistic labeling from the right-wing crowd, like when Rocky's gender and pronouns are discussed. I think I was pleasantly surprised and amused when I read the scene, hearing Grace discuss how strange pronouns and gender could be before ascribing masculinity to Rocky, to this little guy. Why is he orange? And hello, little McCoy, and why are you PPE even? When Iridians are, as far as we know, genderless. Grace initially believes himself to be gay, as he remembers living alone with the lack of any female or feminine touch in the apartment that he lives in. Strat has some issues with internalized misogyny in the book, not, again, explicitly stated. That would be stupid. That would be very on-the-nose writing, and despite how simple and easy to read Weir's work is, he's not an on-the-nose writer. But Strat initially wants to choose all-male astronauts for the mission, and Grace goes, isn't that kind of sexist? And she gives a half-hearted rationale for it. Very interesting and flawed character. I love her. I saw a Tumblr post dissecting her character and calling her a prisoner in her own right too. But Weir went on a conservative podcast trying to be a neutral perspective, and I'm allowed to find something really harmful in that. You're operating traditional political principles, expecting civil conversation from right-wing extremists, while you may very well achieve a semblance of that if you're deemed non-threatening enough. Where right-wing extremists coddle you toward the end goal of achieving a platform to spew hateful rhetoric and recruit more extremists, the other side is likely to just chastise you for allowing that to happen, and there are always bad apples in every single movement, right? But in case anyone hits me with the, well, you can't disagree with a leftist, you're not able to have civil discussions with them type shit. Regardless, as an artist, you still have influence, no matter visual or audio or literary. Very apt example in the moment, since her wedding just shut down a whole fucking street in Madison Square Garden. Taylor Swift is outspoken when it comes to some liberal topics, urging people to vote for certain candidates, has spoken out about gay rights, she's pro-choice, she's oomphs with Haley Kiyoko. Oh my god, Haley, why? She's pro-choice. She talks about her experience as a woman in music and the misogyny she faces. At least her public persona has stood for a variety of these topics, but she still farts out jet streams when she travels from one mansion to the other. Pick up on my hyperbolic tone, please. And she quietly endorsed Israel, taking her foul husband out to some Israeli-owned restaurants. Israel has a history of co-opting cultural foods of other countries and their own subjugates in an effort to build a case for the country's existence and toward the end of ethnic cleansing Palestine. So sure, it's not imperative that you face backlash for being an artist and sharing your opinions and all. You're not a politician with legislative power, but you have influential power. Criticism is deserved. I deserve criticism if I'm being stupid. But here's another point in terms of weirdly writing social commentary. No matter how much he denies it. Another character not included in the film, Dr. Robert Rettle, Bob Rettle, disgraced, imprisoned billionaire engineer who was let free in exchange for his help on the project, whom Grace constantly laps criticism at internally, and whose character is used as a further point toward Grace's displeasure at Strat's method, and whom is involved in paving over the Sahara in order to provide heating for the Earth and generate enough power for astrophage reproduction. Ryland disavows Rettle for profiting off of corruption under the guise of innovation. The reason why he's in prison is for his haphazard tech and business practices, killing 6 people. He can be compared to individuals in today's tech world, the quote-unquote bad apples who can be snarky and charming public personas and the kind of guy you like hate watching. You can grasp how Weir believes in technology. He's worked in the industry for over 25 years. He's probably had first-hand experience with the person he writes in Rettle. He has an idealistic view of AI in the long run, that it will adapt to art, that the current state of it is just a roadblock. And that's giving far too much credit to the accelerationists and their corporate interests. Not even going to mention the ethical dilemmas. We're well enough aware. This isn't me being pessimistic either, and my hope is the thing that compels me to denounce these things. Andy Weir tends to write optimistically and idealistically of the future. It's his hopefulness that bleeds into the writing I highlight once more. But hope without a channel, just like his supposed view of the political, veers on naive. In the end, science isn't one of those things that is inherently political until you weaponize it or attack it. It's currently being attacked. It's continuously been weaponized. Look at how nuclear weaponry was briefly mentioned in the book. Think toward that end. The destruction that it wreaks, once more I say highlighted in the book, mourned over. Finishing his arc, Grace decides to save Rocky. In the book, and not included in the movie, he isn't only at risk of running out of fuel, but food as well. He's afraid of dying, but he would choose to die for Rocky inevitably, and that proves his braveness in the end, even though he realizes as he gets over his amnesia that he wasn't the brave person he thought he was. And ultimately, he synthesizes artificial food from Talmiba and his own flesh, and he has to make a sacrifice. He shuns the cowardice he began the book with to save someone he deeply cares for. He imagines Rocky alone and scared for 46 years, longer than he's been alive. He imagines Rocky freaking out when the mutated Talmiba manages to cut through his fuel and Rocky doesn't know why, and Rocky's unable to save his planet or his star, and it's heartbreaking. He then lives an unconventional life on Erid. He doesn't have a lot of interest in the book or the movie, just some past relationships, like I mentioned, also isn't definitively straight or queer. And the movie is a bit more vague on the matter, actually. Shoutouts Linda, Rocky hate Mark, Rocky hate Mark. And even just those brief story beats say something about love and sacrifice. It isn't a romantic love interest that Grace decides to risk his life for. He doesn't save the girl at the end of the day, he saves his friend. Overall, the book and the movie and the audiences speak for themselves far more than the author can speak for them. So Andy Weir may not be wrong, but he definitely isn't right. And ultimately, when someone says they don't want to write anything with social commentary and claim themselves to be a mindless consumer, just as he stated, it's a political stance anyway. Consumerism for the sake of itself is dangerous. It's why we have so much AI slop littering and polluting our social media feeds, especially that of Weir's generation. Get off Facebook, mom. Please, I need you to stop doom scrolling through all those AI generated pug reels. He's not cooking it. He's not cooking. It's why we have so many Americans who don't know any better than what the news tells them to believe. Support Israel unequivocally because it's our ally for the safety of all Jews, even though it only makes Jewish people more unsafe. The people of the Middle East are terrorists and barbarish, and we will liberate them. Muslims are backward. China is a surveillance going after you specifically. Just ignore all of the flock cameras plastered across your neighborhood and just don't question your lifestyle, where the lithium from our phones and computers and cars are sourced from, whose hands are stained with blood over the matter. Don't pay any mind to the women of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Don't pay any mind to the people and women of Sudan, constantly terrorized over the UAE-backed RSF armies who are our ally. Don't pay any mind to the children dying in Gaza, in Congo, in Sudan. Don't see immigrants as people. A Mexican-American father died in Houston. His name was Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. An ICU nurse died in Minneapolis. His name was Alex Preddy. A wife and a mother died there too. Renee Nicole Good, a black man, a father, killed in LA. Keith Porter Jr., a teenager, Ruben Ray Martinez, just this year, not even mentioning the compounding numbers across this second term, or the people who are dying in ICE detention centers, who have done nothing wrong except stay on an expired visa, or be citizens themselves who just happen to be brown, or look Mexican, or cross the border legally, but you should close your eyes. Love your country blindly. don't question anything. Everything is political because our struggles are all interconnected, and if you read past the surface level in between the lines, a story about humanity and hope has to be too.
Although many contend, you may find hope ascend to mark just how everything changes. Whether the temperature highs or the sea ever rising, it's all going up with the wages. A murdered reporter